All right, everybody, it's time to catch up with my guy, Zack frickin' Rosenblatt, baby, of The Athletic. Let's get this party started. Long overdue.
Zoinks! It is unequivocally the Super Bowl for New York Jet fans.
Field Yates, baby. Field gosh darn Yates. Let's bring him on the show.
Come on, people. Connor Rogers is joining the show. What's up, Connor? But Trevor gosh darn Sycamore, baby, for me, personally, my favorite New York Jet of all time.
Wow, it's great to be on. What an intro that was right there.
Paul, nobody does an intro like you, man.
Paul, you give the best intro of literally any podcast that I've ever seen.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas. Oh yeah, baby. We're here. I'm fired up. I love this friggin' guy, a fellow bearded individual that invests significant portions of his life talking and writing about the New York Jets. Without further ado, let's bring him in, Zack Rosenblatt, the writer extraordinaire for The Athletic, baby. What's cracking, Zack?
Not much. How you doing, buddy?
I love it. We got the hats, the glasses, the beards. We're texting each other, trying to match outfits. This is phenomenal, man. I love it.
Are you wearing a Game of Thrones shirt also?
I am not, but I am a massive Game of Thrones fan.
There you go.
I mean, massive. And I don't know. I guess we'll start there, Zack. You know, a lot of people are just ruined by the last season, but not me. F that. I invested, baby. I was in. Did it go quite the way I wanted? No. But you know what? I still love Game of Thrones.
Yeah, the last season was tough, but you know, I went back and rewatched at some point. I think maybe before the last episode came out, and just like watching like the first like 5 or 6 seasons. There's I think 6 is where it's probably started going off the rails a little bit. I can't remember exactly numbers.
Yeah.
But once they got away from the books a little bit, but yeah, when at its best, like there's maybe never been a better show. I just thought it was so well done, so well acted, so well written, and then they just kind of like rushed to the finish line a little bit, which was disappointing, but I love it. I enjoyed House of the Dragon too, and I'm excited.
Oh yes,
that. Yeah,
very good. And I'm looking forward. I keep hearing, you know, I feel like I'm on like the dark web, and I'm meeting like a guy on the corner of my street in a trench coat when I'm trying to hear more about. Hey, there's a Jon Snow Game of Thrones spinoff. And I'm like, give me the deets. Yeah. So I'm just trying to search everywhere I can for all these spinoff rumors and things. I'm hearing.
Jets fan George R.R. Martin, right?
Yes, that's right. So yeah, the more the merrier, baby, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I just realized how much of a freak I am with all this stuff now, because I caught up in Game of Thrones. I wasn't initially on it, but like I caught up while everything was still moving and grooving. And ahead of the final season, we did a Game of Thrones fantasy draft, and we were trying to pick in our drafting who will win the Game of Thrones. And we're doing this fantasy draft. I was bringing up Vegas odds, saying, I think Peter Baelish is back in. His odds are there. Maybe he's dead and comes back alive. So I remember all the conspiracy theories and stuff we're doing. Pretty good stuff, man. Pretty good stuff.
My brother and I did like a death pool with like we each had to like draft who we thought might die in the last season, and then I think I won, and he had to buy me a. Actually, I've on one of the One Jets Drive. I'm like wearing this. It's like a Dracarys shirt, but in the theme of like the Jurassic Park logo, and he had to buy me that as like the punishment for losing to me. So
that's cool. It's funny because we have the picture here behind us. I almost used that Dracarys one for the thing. You're famous, baby. You're getting on all the One Jets Drive episodes. Get a lot of airtime, a lot of head nodding in the front row of media row.
I'm a good head nodder. Yeah, that's
you are. You're very engaged. You appear to be very engaged
that's
guy.
How people know that when I have a conversation with somebody, even and maybe I'm not listening. I'm like, definitely, yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. I love it. Well, Zack, you've been all over the place this offseason, baby, especially with the Athletic piece. I'm going to be honest. I don't even know how I'm going to ask this question. I don't even know what my question is, but I'm just going to kind of throw it there. Maybe we could both find it together. When you write a piece like this, and this isn't your first rodeo, obviously, I've been a big fan of your work for a very long time, but when you write the massive piece you did with Diana, or even going back to the Zach Wilson, Mike LaFleur one from last year, and maybe it's a little different because it's the offseason right now, but do you... Like when you walk back into the Jets facilities and you're doing your job, is there like a side eye from people? Is there, because like that's your job, but also there's some serious stuff in there, that you guys have been reporting on. So again, I don't even know what my question is, but is there some of that when you go back in?
I hear what you're saying. I I always expect it to be worse, like in that way, than it ever winds up actually being with stuff like that. I think I didn't have that with the Zach Wilson one. I think part of with this one, because of when it published, I would say, like I haven't been in the building and I haven't been around any of the featured people. I've heard from people in the Jets, so has Diana, and from what I can gather, like people aren't even really mad at us, honestly. I like it because they know a lot. They know that it's all true. So
Of course.
and I think internally, like the organization knows they need to work on a lot of things. So I think that's a big part of it. Obviously, they didn't want that story to come out. And it doesn't make them look good, certainly, and specific people, obviously. But yeah, ultimately, I'm not really worried about that. I'm not really worried that they're going to like try and get in the way of me doing my job because I try and do it the right way. And it'll be interesting to see what happens when I have to interact with everybody once we go to the combine and owners meetings and once we get back in the groove. But ultimately, I don't get the sense that it's going to be like a problem for me or anything. Because I did my job the right way. We ran some stuff by the Jets. We told them it was coming. I know some reporters in the past have decided not to do that and they just drop something like this. So we did everything by the book. And yeah, I know it's obviously a story that had a lot of stuff in it and a lot of stuff that makes the team look bad. And a lot of people don't want to believe a lot of things in there, but ultimately, we obviously stand on everything we reported. So that's why when I walk into the building, I'm going to walk in with my head held high because I stand by everything that we wrote and reported. So I'm not really worried about it.
Why is that important to you? You mentioned that because some other mediums, to your point, will drop a bombshell and the team is almost scrambling and reacts to it like, whoa, didn't see that coming. Why is that important to you, the Athletic? I know you're speaking for a lot of people, I guess, or maybe just yourself, but why is that an important piece of the puzzle to like, hey, Jets, hey, this nugget, verify, or this nugget, or comment, or what have you?
Yeah, and even just like letting them know it's coming, just because we do have relationships with these people, and while we know this is like an unfortunate part of the job, I think for the most part they understand that we're just doing our job, and they appreciate when they can like kind of like circle the wagons, let the people involved know that a certain thing is coming, or if they need a like there's certain things that we a lot of stuff that we hear, and we want to like see if they'll provide context or offer comment for certain things, and that's kind of like what you do for a story like that. Like, I mean, at least that's how I approach it. I never try to like, for a story like this, that's like obviously so heavily reported. And again, like everything was multi-sourced in that story. So like we knew that everything was accurate and all that, but we still wanted to like give the Jets the chance to like respond to it. We did the same thing with the Zach Wilson thing. I did the same thing last year with my Zach Wilson, LaFleur story. Like that's just how we do it. And some organizations would respond differently. I think the Jets actually handled it very well in our conversations with them. Again, I'm sure they were very mad and cursing us out when we hung up the phone, but I definitely get the sense that these teams definitely appreciate it more when you work with them a little bit, not necessarily like let them influence the story or anything, but just like work with them and let them know like, hey, like this is coming. It's going to suck, but it is coming. And we just like want you guys to know that kind of thing.
And Zach, you explained this a little bit on the Can't Wait pod, coming off of the breaking story about your guys' reporting between you and Diana. But you said there's plenty of stuff. I don't think it's like a response to people that are just hating, because people are going to do that no matter what on social media. But like, hey, man, there's a lot of stuff that didn't make the story because it didn't pass your own personal journalistic vetting, The Athletic, the New York Times, everything. Like, There was a lot of stuff that didn't make the story because of that. I think I'm going to butcher it, and now I'm going to try to paraphrase you, but you said like you wrote like a cajillion words, and you guys sliced like a bunch of it off because you weren't able to verify and all that stuff. So then you're like, all right, then it's just going to be a shorter story with what we absolutely know is true.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, when anybody like writes something or when you produce, a TV show, a movie, like stuff is gonna get on the cutting room floor for whatever reason. But yeah, what I do with a story like this in particular, and just in general, when I have a story where I talk to a lot of people, I try to write it first with like everything I have in it, and then I go back, to go through the proper channels and figure out what works, what doesn't, and then you kind of whittle it down. I'd say my initial draft was over 5,000 words. I would say I think it ended around 3,000, which is still pretty long. For a story like this, those tend to be longer, but as you know, we obviously had like a lot of stuff in there. So, yeah, there's definitely stuff that, I heard, either like through one or two sources, or like I wasn't able to like get like specifics. So like, okay, we're not going to put that in there kind of thing. Like you just like work through it. Diane and I work through it. And then with our editors and And then as we have these conversations, you circle back to sources and stuff like that. Like we did all the vetting that we had to do.
All right. One interesting thing of the story, I'm going to be honest, it was saucy. I was like, ooh, yeah. Give me some more of that, baby. Was the potential of a veteran addition to the staff to somehow reduce the role of Nathaniel Hackett and to like add just some, some splash to the collaboration of the play calling. At least everything we've seen so far has been positionally running back this guy out, wide receiver this guy out. Has there been anything more on that? Because that's really intriguing, I think, to a lot of people to add another person to that room potentially.
Yeah, it's been pretty quiet. And honestly, the Jets have tried to keep their coaching changes pretty quiet in general. Like they haven't even announced their staff changes. And maybe they won't. Some teams do, some teams don't. I haven't heard that they've like hired anybody for that role or if they've been able to get anybody that they feel worthy of it. I know one of the guys that they were pursuing wound up getting a job somewhere else. And so, I haven't had a chance to I've honestly tried to just like take a step back for the last like week because it's been a hectic offseason, obviously.
Right.
But especially as we get to Indy, we'll hear a lot more and we'll talk to a lot more people and we'll find out a little bit more. I haven't heard necessarily that they've like found the guy for that role. It's honestly possible they've done it. It's on the hush hush. They tried to keep that on the hush hush and we got it and reported and had it confirmed and all that stuff. But I don't know what exactly that's going to look like. I mean, Nathaniel Hackett's going to be the offensive coordinator no matter what like additional person they bring in, what the structure looks like with the play calling. And, I know Woody Johnson had that comment on the red carpet where he said Robert Saleh is going to be more involved with offense. We haven't had a chance to talk to Robert. I don't know if that was a slip of the tongue or if it was like an actual, like Robert Saleh is going to let Jeff Ulbrich do defense and he's going to like maybe put his hands more into the pot or into the cookie jar, as he likes to say, for offense. And he has to fix the offense because the defense is going to be good again. I have confidence in that. The offense, I do with Hackett as the play caller. Like I don't think there's a lot of confidence in that group right now. So I think Saleh really has to be more hands-on there if he's not going to bring in somebody who can kind of run the show.
Yeah, I did hear that comment, Zach. It intrigued me on the Can't Wait podcast that you guys talked about. You said one of the guys that they were looking at or talked to ended up getting hired somewhere else in some other position, which I'm assuming we're referencing this senior offensive person that was there. Who was that individual?
I can't say, unfortunately. I do appreciate the question. I'm not trying to be cagey. It's just like that's one of those things that we heard. And we were able to share the part of the thing that we reported is what I would say.
Okay. No, yeah, because the reason why I ask is even obviously this person isn't coming to the Jets. Obviously they went somewhere else, but it would be intriguing to see who they were looking at and their credentials, because then it's like, oh, so those are the waters they're swimming in. Interesting for what they would look at for the position. That would certainly be the intrigue.
I would say, it's definitely like people who have like experience of play calling, people who have, successful backgrounds on offense, like that kind of thing is kind of like the mold of coach that I would say, like somebody that they trust enough that they can bring them in. They'd still involve Hackett, but they'd maybe like, oversee everything that was going on kind of thing. I don't know exactly. I haven't talked to Robert Saleh specifically about this. I don't know like what his vision is for that role, but that's the sense I got from like talking to people both in and around the situation. Yeah.
Again, we're speaking with freaking Zack Rosenblatt, baby, of The Athletic. I freaking love this guy. And Zach, so this position that you guys were able to kind of dig up some info on, is it, especially with the collaboration and the play calling, is this a break the glass emergency? So if the Hackett train keeps going down, that like the guys in the room, he had been around the team for months. So like, the only guy that I guess you could have done last year is Todd Downing, who technically had done it previously. So but they seem to be collabing together once Hackett moved up to the booth. But is that what this guy is, or just another flavor for more words and voices in the room that the collaboration just will now include one more additional guy? Like I know you haven't spoke with Saleh, so we don't know the exact vision, but as we're kind of speculating with the pieces you have, that they're even looking at that as the position.
It's a good question. I don't have a great answer. I just would say it did kind of sound like it would just be kind of another voice. Maybe that voice would have more influence. I don't know. I personally don't know that more voices is like the solution. I always think about this with Doug Peterson. There was a year where Jeffrey Lurie forced him to like fire the OC, Mike Groh, and they created, then they did like a whole collaborative thing where it was Press Taylor, it was Rich Scangarello, it was Doug Peterson, and it was like all these different people calling plays, and it was a disaster. And everybody got fired the next year. I don't know that a collaborative thing is the approach. I get why they feel like they have to keep Hackett there, but ultimately, the one who's going to be like the main play caller is Aaron Rodgers. So if he's there, then in a way he's the senior voice coming in to fix things. But I think ultimately that's the factor more than anything. I think people should focus on, because it's going to be Aaron Rodgers' show no matter who they bring in. But it definitely is interesting that they kind of like, okay, we need to give Nathaniel Hackett some help because it was a disaster last year. I think they all know that.
And do you have any sense? Because, like, are we talking saucy? Because, like John Gruden, like that's a name out there that people are talking about. Like, whoa, if that came across the ticker at some point this offseason, whoa, mama, that's a name. Or are we just talking about some rando name? Yeah, it was Aaron Rodgers' brother's cousin's cat, his nephew. He comes in. Oh yeah, okay.
The guy who had a coffee with in the same location as Aaron Rodgers.
Exactly right. That's what I'm talking about here. Like, so if and when this, I mean, it would have to come out eventually, I guess. Are we talking like some saucy eyebrow raising names, or is it just a name?
Yeah, I don't have like a great specific answer for you on that. I haven't heard John Gruden. That would be fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, if they were going to bring somebody in that mold, makes a lot of sense. Somebody who's kind of like run things. I mean, you do wonder if, as a head coach, if Sal would be hesitant to bring in somebody like that, because then in theory you have your interim replacement. But yeah, I mean, they absolutely they should bring some. I mean, they've changed the offensive staff up a little bit. They clearly know they need to make some changes on offense. All the key figures are pretty much back. Like losing Taylor Embry and Zach Ghazzani is not really going to change much. But bringing in like a veteran voice, like, I mean, that was the idea when they brought Greg Knapp in 2021, and then he unfortunately passed away. I think that was the idea when they brought in Todd Downing last year. Just bring in somebody who brings a little different perspective, or someone who Aaron Rodgers trusts and believes in, kind of thing. Like, I don't know exactly who that'll be, or if it'll even wind up happening at this point. Because I think before they hired Hackett, I think Robert Saleh last year was having some trouble finding offensive coordinators like willing to come to the Jets, because it was like viewed as like a lame duck job and all that stuff. Sure. And it's even more the case now. So just because he wants to hire like a big name doesn't necessarily mean he'll be able to. But I do wonder how the staff's going to take shape as we get closer to the season, and if they make an official announcement at some point.
Okay, fans have been begging for Bryce Huff to be tagged and traded since the offseason started. But you, Rich Samini, Brian Castano, like almost every team I've talked to, either publicly or privately, have all said, yeah, kick rocks, pal. That ain't happening. So, by the way, did I categorize that correctly before we go any further? That there's like a no % chance, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I would never say never, but I don't see that happening. The main reason being, number one, like tag and trades are not as like simple as that. I think Bryce Huff might even have to sign the tag in order for him to be able to get traded at that point.
Correct. So, yes, that's right. Yeah.
So and you're carrying that, you have to have enough cap space to carry that huge cap hit on top of all the other cap space they're going to need to make. Like, there's no guarantee that trade will happen in a timely manner. Like, there's a lot of factors against it. I don't see it happening. I think the Jets are more likely to just cut their losses and say, we'll get a compensatory third round pick next year than a tag and trade and see what you can get for them. Unfortunately, as you know, I've been saying since last year they should have re-signed him early. They kind of waited too long. I think they kind of, by the end of the year, decided they weren't going to give anybody extensions before the end of the season. And Bryce Huff's one of those guys that you brought up internally, you built him up into this great player. And now another team is probably going to reap the benefit. And it's unfortunate because he's like a guy that's on the rise. And I think he's only going to keep getting better. But Joe Douglas has to answer the owner, and the owner might look at it and be like, look, why would I pay a backup $17 million a year? And I know it's not as simple as that. I think the part that gets lost in the conversation is, and this was the idea when they drafted Will McDonald, they drafted Will McDonald with the idea that they're going to be carrying a lot of leads in games. And so you're going to rush the passer more. And so if in theory, the Jets should have more leads next season than they did this last year, where they didn't have many, when you have Rodgers back. And when you have leads, throwing Bryce Huff out there, is one of the best weapons a team can have, especially when you have Jermaine like becoming a star, and you have Will McDonald, who should be better next year. That's just like a fascinating group. And that just kind of like feeds into the philosophy that Joe Douglas came here with about like being great up front first, and then you figure out the rest. So I would bring him back. I think he's probably asking for a lot of money, and he might get it. I think he's going to wind up with one of the bigger contracts in free agency, and I don't think the Jets are going to be willing to give him what he's going to earn, and it's people are going to be mad about it, but that's kind of where they're at right now. And if they let him go, I think they're doing that with the idea that they believe Will McDonald's going to take a next step, and there's some risk involved with that because we haven't seen it yet, but they really do believe in that kid. So. This is kind of where you make your bones on that pick, and Joe Douglas can redeem himself for that draft pick that I think, in retrospect, everybody's pretty mad about now. But if he can go out and play at a Bryce Huff type level, then you feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, to your point, I mean, I'm going to be honest. As a Jets fan, I feel robbed because Bryce Huff had freaking 10 sacks on this godforsaken Jets team that just happened that had like no leads.
Yeah,
man, if you throw a couple of leads and he knows the offense is passing, 15, 17, shoot, I don't know how many more sacks this guy could have had. So if the Jets never get that chance, i.e. he walks out the door, then that's going to be pretty depressing. Okay, Zach, I want to throw this at you. Okay, it's like maybe conspiracy theory. I don't even know what kind of theory this is. And you tell me whether I'm an idiot or it makes some level of sense. I'm basing this completely off your opinion. Okay?
Okay,
here it is. Okay, so here's my whole thing on Bryce Huff, why I think a tag and trade could happen. Okay, here's what you do. Okay, I'd rather Jets just keep him, but okay, we're coming up with new ideas here. So the NFL Combine's coming in a couple weeks. All the general managers are all in the same place. If Douglas is reading the room, he's like, "We're losing Bryce Huff. This dude is walking out the door." He starts having some conversations with other GMs. Everyone's there in Indy. He goes, "Hey, who wants Bryce Huff? Tag and trade?" They have those conversations, set up the framework of a deal, get a couple of teams interested, whoever it is, and then he's like, "Okay, cool. Falcons, I'm making it up. Falcons, you want him? Okay, we're going to give you, hey, Falcons, go talk to Bryce Huff right now. We are giving you and your team all the permission to go talk to Bryce Huff and his representation. Go set up the contract, anything you want. We set up a compensation, a third-round pick, who gives a flying hoot, whatever it is, boop. Talk to him, okay? And then we get to the tag time, and you tag him just long enough, like the trade's already worked out, and you tag him just long enough to slap his ass with the shipping label on the tush, and he jumps on the plane and switches over, and then booyah, trade happens. You guarantee you get some sort of compensation, because even the 2025 comp pick, that might not happen. If the Jets spend a little too much dough, they may absolutely lose him for nothing. So, okay, too crazy, possible? Zack Rosenblatt, thoughts?
Yeah, I would say I still don't think that's very likely, unfortunately. Yeah, because a team would be like, "We'll just wait you out, and then eventually he'll be available anyway." It's kind of what I mean. There might be a team that loves him and thinks he's this absolute star, but you're not only are you paying him, but you're also giving up a draft pick for him at that point. It's kind of like the Lamar thing, a different level, but the Lamar thing of last year. Like the reason why teams weren't going after him wasn't because they didn't believe he was very good. It was because, in addition to giving up like free first-round picks or whatever, you had to make him the highest paid quarterback in the league, fully guaranteed or whatever. And it's obviously a smaller deal with Bryce Huff, but I don't think there'll be enough interest or like desperation to go get him that I think that would be a possibility. So if they lose him, they're just probably going to lose him for nothing ultimately. And compensatory picks, bank on them, like you said, it's kind of like a crapshoot, and you don't know if the Jets are going all in this offseason, they might not really be in position to get comp picks, but I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say there's like a 0% chance they don't resign him. I just lean towards it not happening. Last year I thought Quincy Williams would price out of their range, and they wound up getting him on a really good deal, especially considering he became an All-Pro. So maybe I'll be wrong. I'll happily be wrong on that because I think he's a stud, and he played like 46% of the snaps this last year, and he had 10 sacks. So I have no reason to believe that his production wouldn't go up if he got more playing time. So we'll see.
Speaking of potential extensions, you've written about it in The Athletic, had a couple of articles out on a couple of guys. So I want to ask you specifically on a couple of these guys here that are either heading into contract years and that, an extension could lower their cap number and then have them under contract for a while. Like DJ Reed. What would a contract look like for DJ Reed? Because the cap hit's really high. It's like $15 million plus for what he's on the books for this year. So it behooves the Jets to lower that to help out with more money now. DJ Reed, hell yeah, I want to get paid more money. Yes, please. So it would work out for both parties. Do you have any idea on what a contract could look like for a guy like DJ Reed?
I don't have like a specifics. I did look at the contract that James Bradbury got from the Eagles. I thought was like a good structure. I think it was something like $39 million over 3 years, like something like that. I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah.
You'd have to look that up. But yeah, I like the $15 million cap hit is probably going to be too high for this season, regardless. Like they need to drop that down. you could in theory restructure it, and then you're just getting dead cap hits on top of a contract that's expiring, and then if you lose him, you're still paying. Like the Jets are dealing with that already this offseason with a bunch of guys. They're going to be paying like $20 million to guys who aren't on the team.
Yeah, 3 years, 38 million, 12 and a half average. Yeah, for the Bradbury
something
numbers.
like that. I mean, maybe a little more. I don't know. The thing with DJ Reed, like, is he hasn't been voted a Pro Bowl or All Pro and all that stuff. So, what does the rest of the league think of him? I imagine they think he's very good because he is. But I would lock him up. I would lock Michael Carter II up. I know it's hard to pay 3 corners a lot of money, but you have maybe the best cornerback room in the league, and they're all young. I think DJ Reed's only 26 or 27 still. Sauce is going to have to get paid pretty soon, and he's probably going to wind up being one of the highest paid dudes in the league. But I don't know. I would extend DJ Reed, and if you're not doing that, then I don't know. I don't know what you do there. And I also have Tyler Conklin as a guy that I would extend to. Maybe they won't do that. I don't know. Maybe they don't view him as a long-term solution, but I think he's just a solid tight end that even if you go and get a Brock Bowers or whatever, you can still pair. He's a good, like, really, really good pairing there. And you probably run a lot of 12 personnel. And I think Rodgers will boost Tyler Conklin's value this year because Rodgers is really good at getting the ball to the tight end. So I would extend those 2 guys, make them cores of your team, clear some cap. Like, they don't really have, like, as I wrote in my salary cap story, like, they don't have a lot of guys that they can cut for cap space unless you're cutting a CJ Mosley or you're cutting a Conklin or something like that, cutting a good player that you then have to also replace, which is the part that everybody forgets. They don't have a lot of avenues. So I think you extend guys that you know are good. You restructure some guys that you know are going to be here, and maybe some that aren't. Like, they might have to restructure Lazard just because they don't really have a choice. They'll cut Uzama. They'll probably trade Zach Wilson. Lake and Tomlinson obviously is an interesting one, but I think extending DJ Reed in particular, just reducing that, they can reduce that $15 million cap hit quite a bit if they do that. So that'll save you a good chunk of money. And, they have a lot of, as you know, they have a lot of stuff they have to do this offseason. They have to get a couple offensive linemen, at least 2, maybe 3. They need some depth there. They need, wide receiver 2, probably wide receiver 3. They need a better backup running back, better backup quarterback. And that's on top of, having to resign one of the safeties, having to resign Quentin Jefferson or Solomon, Thomas Morstead, Greg Zuerlein. Like, there's a lot of business to do. And right now they have like $5 million in cap space. So they're going to be pushing a lot down the road. They're going to be going all in on this year. The cap sheet's not going to look amazing next year. They'll probably have to do the same thing. But they don't really have a choice right now. So.
Yeah, in one of your columns, again, there's been a few that have been kind of your perfect plan. That I hope. Did you send that, by the way, to One Jets Drive to Joe Douglas's office? Your 10-step plan, was that set there?
Yeah, I joked on Can't Wait yesterday. Like, all you have to do is just log in and just look at that plan, and then he'll be good to go. Yeah,
I'll be honest, I laughed because you said I just plug in your athletic subscription, but then you're like, maybe a few of them.
Yeah, a few of them might have canceled.
Unsubscribed. That was funny. That got me. That was pretty good. But in there, like, you seem to, both on the Can't Wait pod and in your article, you seem, I don't know, pretty confident. Like I said, I hate putting words in your mouth to your mouth. That sounds kind of weird, but like Zach Wilson, it seems like you feel pretty confident, some level of confidence that they're actually going to be able to trade him and actually get him somewhere, and there will be some level of interest. Again, we're not fooling ourselves with like a first round pick or anything crazy like that, obviously, but you seem to be, pretty. Yeah, he's going to get moved for something.
Yeah, I think so, because I mean, you look at just the Texans game, and he showed enough to where, at the very least, he can be one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league, and when you're on another team, he's not going to have the pedigree of the number 2 overall pick anymore, or like the baggage of that. I would say, like, it's going to be a new start. You hope he goes somewhere out of the spotlight. Maybe he can develop into a starter somewhere. I think there's going to be a team that sees his tools and thinks, okay, we can develop him. If maybe we're only giving up a conditional 6th or something like that. Like, it's not going to be a lot. I would say it's definitely like a non-zero chance that they just have to cut him. I don't see it. I think they're going to get interest in him. I don't know when it'll happen. You'd think leading up the draft, or maybe it's even like you use him in conjunction with another pick to move up 10 picks, 5 picks, something like that. Like, they're in the 4th round or 5th round or whatever it is. Like, you use him as a part of a deal. But I don't see why a team wouldn't like, if I was a team that had the ability to carry either a developmental 3rd quarterback, or you have a starting quarterback that doesn't get hurt or whatever. I mean, nobody has one that doesn't get hurt, but
right.
Yeah, I don't know. I would take a flyer on him if I was another team. I don't think he's not gonna go out there and be a star for anybody, but in the right situation, I think he could be pretty good.
I don't know if I want to say this has quite been haunting my nightmares, but you did an interview with Will Parkinson on TOJ Talks' new show, and he threw something at you about, well, DJ Reed's heading into a contract year. Michael Carter II's heading into a contract year. You're trying to get creative with these money situations of how to save a quick buck. I think he floated to you the potential of trading a DJ Reed and you move him. And then if the Jets are so confident and the Brandon Eccles of the world or whoever, maybe you go sign a much cheaper guy, that's a path. You get some sort of an asset and save a bunch of money. I hate that, by the way, because I want to keep these three corners together. But if you had to put a percentage chance on that kind of crazy possibility happening, what are the chances that sort of thing could happen? Or is that, again, some harebrained scheme too?
No, I mean, the minute he said it, I'm like, shoot, that makes like a decent amount of, like, if they don't plan on re-signing him, it makes some sense. But they should not be getting into the habit of trading away great players and letting great players walk out of their building, because for a long time they did not have a lot of them. So I think DJ Reed is going to go down as one of the best free agent signings in team history. It's the best one of Joe Douglas's tenure, certainly. That's not really even a competition if you don't factor in like waiver claims and stuff. But I wouldn't do it. But, you know, I can see the argument for it. I can see you have Michael Carter II already. You have Sauce Gardner. That's 2 out of 3. Like you said, if you believe in Brandon Eccles, or you can draft one, or you can sign a veteran, like a cheaper veteran. But I don't think you want to be downgrading your pass defense, because, again, if you're going to be having a lot of leads, the other team's going to be passing the ball a lot. And if they can keep shutting down both sides of the field, they can still do their thing where they don't believe in traveling. They do that because they have 2 guys they believe they can leave on an island. So I would not do it. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's like a 0% chance. Because he has a big cap hit, and if you don't view him as a long-term piece, then go and get what you can for him now, I guess, would be the thought. But also, like, everybody is working and is coaching and GMing for their jobs this year. So I don't know if getting rid of guys for like future draft picks is a great idea either.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. Okay, what are the chances? Apparently, this has been the theme of this episode. What are the chances at any point during the 2024 NFL draft that the Jets select a quarterback at any point during the draft?
I would say pretty decent. You know, I lean more towards like a day 3 type situation. But if there's a guy they really like, if they trade back in the first round and they pick up a second round pick or an additional third, like, and there's, you know, one of those guys sitting there that they love, like, I don't see why not. I mean, I guess I would see why not. And that's what I just said before, is that this group is on the hot seat. And that's why a lot of these teams don't wind up doing the developmental quarterback, because why am I going to develop a quarterback for the next guy kind of thing? But like everybody's coaching and GMing for their jobs, and you get it to a degree, but also like the Jets just need to have better like contingency plans. And so I think they should absolutely go and spend whatever you got to spend to sign a Jacoby Brissett, a Tannehill, whoever it is, to be the backup quarterback, and draft somebody somewhere in the 2 to 7 round range and hope you strike gold. And then if you don't, then you try again next year, and then you keep trying until you stumble on a guy who can be a great backup or a future starter. Because there's guys like Brock Purdy in every draft, that maybe not every draft, because some years there's bad quarterbacks, but there's always a chance you might stumble on something. I'd rather take a chance on a quarterback on day 3 than a linebacker or like a safety that's never going to play for you kind of thing. And so take a risk on a guy like that is what I would say. And I think they will. I think this is the year they draft a developmental guy, especially because Rodgers is turning 41. And if they really do believe they're going to win this year, everybody's going to come back. You need to have a plan for the future. So if they can go into this offseason and hit a lot of their needs before the draft, then you could start doing best player available, and you could start thinking about the future a little more. And maybe that's what their goal is to like it. You don't want to go into the draft like they did last year. Everybody knew what they needed in that pick, and then you saw the Steelers jump ahead of them and all that stuff. So if they can hit a lot of their needs in free agency, like you shouldn't bank on free agency fixing your team, because I think that is a recipe for disaster a lot of times. But to answer your question, I think there's a decent chance they draft a quarterback. I don't know when though.
All right, let me pour one out for who you just said, Zaire Barnes and Jarek Bernard Converse as day 3 picks at the non-quarterback position. All right, let me recalibrate this question. Let me be as specific as possible. With the 10th overall pick in the first round, what are the chances the New York Jets select a quarterback?
I would say pretty low. I'll say 10%, because it's not zero, not zero, but like, again, it would take them having everything they needed already coming into the draft, or like somebody like if Drake May fell to 10 and they think Drake May is the next Peyton Manning or something. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, we're making it up. I understand speculation.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if they're really high on the guy, like I can't imagine Rodgers would be happy that they use their first round, like he's on another team that they use a pick where they need all this other stuff on a QB. But if you think a guy's a star, you go and get him. Like if the next Patrick Mahomes is in the draft, then you don't resist the chance to get him. Or that's an opportunity to trade back and like get a haul also. But yeah, I think that would be the only scenario where a guy they absolutely love is there at 10 and they're like, we need an offensive tackle, but we're not as sure the offensive tackle is going to be a star, but I'm pretty sure that this quarterback is going to be like, I think Joe Douglas is smart enough to not let that guy pass by him.
And maybe this is, you haven't spent enough time with Rodgers to answer this. Mike Garafolo was doing an interview with Ethan Greenberg, a Jets team reporter down there in Mobile, and he was asking him about like the quarterback succession plan or something. It somehow came up, and Garafolo said if it was up to him, that would be a very high priority for the Jets. And he mentioned in his spiel with Ethan Greenberg that he said, of course, this is a lot different than what it was for the Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers scenario. He said, like, something to the effect of, I'm paraphrasing, but Rodgers has grown and, he understands, like he kind of has, there's a difference in mentality from now to then. But I was listening to that going, there's no friggin' way. If the Jets took a quarterback at 10 or anywhere, that Rodgers is going to be like, excuse me? I think it's even more heightened because, like, time is fleeting. Aaron Rodgers knows more than anybody that, like, tomorrow isn't promised. So, like, don't be wasting dumbass picks, with all due respect, on some quarterback, because why would he care, with all due respect, about the future of the Jets? It's about the now for the Jets. So Garofalo was saying that, and I was like, wow, that's weird. I want to throw it to you, but I guess I don't know how much time you spent with Rodgers to know enough whether or not his opinion would have changed over a couple of years about the Packers taking a quarterback when they could have taken something more pressing, which seems like the same situation now in a lot of ways.
Yeah, well, I think the Jets would probably handle it better in terms of like communicating with Aaron at the very least, like, which I think was a big reason why he was so mad when he was in Green Bay. Like, I think it just happened and he found out, like, watching it, kind of thing. That is a reason why I'm skeptical, just because this is a win now year for everybody involved, and like you said, there's a risk that you're drafting that quarterback for the next GM. So that's why I lean towards it not happening. But I'm not prepared to say it's a 0% chance, because again, like if there's a guy there that's very, very good, I think even Rodgers would have to understand why they did it, kind of thing. But ultimately, a lot of that will depend on what they do in free agency. Like if they go and get Aaron a new left tackle, if they get him a new right tackle, if they get him a good number 2 receiver, if they get him some depth at running back, like if they're going in the draft and they filled all these holes already, then Aaron might be like, all right, do whatever you want to do in the first round. Like, I'm happy with what you've brought me here. Like that could be a thing I could see happening.
All right, Zach, let's wrap up here. Let's spill some tea, baby. Is there some rumors that Senior Bowl you're hanging out around Olbrich and company? People like, when Liquid Courage is going down there at the bars, they're sharing extra intel they normally wouldn't be. Come on, man. Free agency's right around the corner. Any Jets buzz? Players they could be kicking the tires on, looking at, interested in. What do we got?
It was a little early in the process, I think. And the tough part is, like, a lot of these, I think this receiver class is going to be pretty decimated by like the franchise tag and like re-signings. Like I do think if guys like Mike Evans, T. Higgins, Michael Pittman, if they actually became available, I absolutely think the Jets would pursue them. I don't think they will. Calvin Ridley is obviously the name that's been thrown around a lot. It makes a lot of sense. I think he's going to have a lot of interest league wide, which I think like a guy has to want to come to the Jets. You have to remember that. Like a lot of times they're I know the guys in Badlands always do the almost Jets. Like
what an episode.
The Jets wind up offering more money and then they just take a little bit less to like go somewhere else. And that's kind of what I see maybe happening with Calvin Ridley. Marquise Brown's intriguing. He does have a connection to the receivers coach.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I think there's probably somebody out there that nobody's talking about that will become available in a trade. And I think that would probably be the avenue the Jets try to if I'm like predicting right this second, like trading for somebody interesting that we're not really talking about right now. I don't know who that is. But I do think they're going to wind up with a number 2 receiver that people are going to be excited about.
Ooh, okay.
Maybe that's Ridley. Maybe that's Brown. Maybe that's a trade. I don't know. I don't know how people feel about Gabe Davis. He'll be available, but not as exciting. But it's gonna be an upgrade, and I think they probably get 2 receivers. I don't know if that's all in free agency or one in the draft or whatever, but I think you need 2 more because I don't think you can rely on Lazard. And while I like Xavier Gibson quite a bit, I don't know that I'd be ready to like hand him the keys to the number 3 receiver spot in a win now year. So
I've been pounding the table about this. Tell me whether you're drinking the same Kool-Aid from my Colt over here. But, Aaron Rodgers didn't join the team officially till late April. And it seems like that affected a lot of free agent decisions. We're like, Aaron Rodgers, Zach Wilson, like worst case scenario. We're playing with Zach Wilson. What the hell? Like best case, Aaron Rodgers, sure, that sounds fun, but like it's a trade. There's a lot of moving variables here. This time around, we know Aaron Rodgers is a part of this team. Does that make a dramatic difference for free agency recruiting, for pitches and conversations? That the intrigue of, hey, we're going all in, baby. Tomorrow, we don't know about tomorrow. We only know about right now. And Aaron Rodgers on this team. I've been getting the hype train up. I'm pretty excited personally as a Jets fan. I know not everyone's in my corner, but I'm really excited that Aaron Rodgers on this team. And the most important position is answered. You have Aaron Rodgers, a Pro Football Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously can't hurt. I think it's more appealing having him there than when they didn't have him. I would say the most disappointing thing probably from the Jets' perspective is that the Raiders did all the right things this offseason to make Davante Adams happy, because I really do think it was a possibility, like as I headed into the offseason, that they would like do whatever they had to do to go and get that guy. But now I don't know that he wants to leave Vegas. Maybe it'll be, no
quarterback though, right? Yeah. Like Aiden O'Connell, Jimmy Garoppolo. Who the hell's over there? Like, come on, Davante.
They'll probably go try and get somebody good. I don't know, but he loves Antonio Pierce, and they hired Luke Getsy, who he was close with from Green Bay. Like they did a lot of the right things to make Davante Adams happy. Like he would be the golden goose, obviously, because he's played with Davante, and so I wouldn't rule it out completely, but I'd be surprised at this point. So like losing the chance to like go all out and get him is unfortunate. I'd say, and like the name that recently has come up that is highly intriguing, and I don't know what it would take, is Brandon Ayuk, who it seems like maybe is not very happy in San Francisco, and that guy's an absolute stud. And there's some other intriguing guys. I'm sure I'll write something at some point, but like I said, I think there's going to be somebody that breaks free. I don't know if it's a Davante Adams or an Ayuk, but I think there's going to be somebody, and maybe the Jets trade a 2025 pick instead of a pick this year because they don't have as many picks. But I think they're going to get a good number 2 receiver at the end of the day. I really do. I don't know what they're going to do on the offensive line. I think banking on the free agency for the offensive line is often a risky proposition, and the top guys this year are kind of injury prone. Yeah. Look at Tyron Smith. I almost said Tyron.
I love Tyron Smith, baby. Yes.
Tyron Smith and Trent Brown. Like these guys they're older and a little more injury prone. Obviously, upgrades. Micah Nwenu from the Patriots is intriguing.
Oh, he's young.
But ultimately, if you look at both receiver and offensive line, like the teams that sign the most expensive guys in free agency, it often doesn't work out. So that does scare me a little bit.
Yeah, your article was alarming from that perspective.
Yeah. So I covered the Giants, and they signed both Nate Solder and Kenny Golladay. Obviously, like you could have guessed probably both of them that it was going to be a disaster, but still, like that's what, like Nate Solder is a great example, because he was the best of that class, but he was an average player in New England. But a team that needed offensive tackles, like, well, we have to do whatever we can do to get the best offensive tackle in free agency, and then he does not live up to the contract. So it's going to be interesting, because when you usually in free agency you have to overpay to get a guy, and that's what's going to happen. And you hope they overpay the right guy, and that's why Nwenu is interesting to me, because the free agents I think you should be going after as a team are the DJ Reed types, guys that are young and still there's still a chance they're going to be better. They're going to get better. Tyron Smith is very tempting because he's very very good when he's healthy, obviously, but in terms of like building a team, I think a guy like Nwenu makes more sense to me.
All right, here's the last one. Now I lied. Here's the real last one. Elijah Vera Tucker, do you believe the Jets really know what they're doing with him, or are we just gonna, hey, let's see what happens in free agency, let's see what happens in the draft, like beep boop bop, and then musical chairs, the game's over. All right, what do we got left? Left guard, all right. AVT, you're over there. Or tackle. All right, I guess you're going over there. Or do they know right now who it is, but they're just not telling us?
I don't think they know right now. I put my money on guard, but I do think he does give them the ability to wait, and they can build around like, okay, we can get a top guard in free agency, and we're going to keep Lakin, and we can sign a tackle. Let's put him at right tackle. That's our whole. Like I think they want to have the best 5. I would keep him at guard because I think that's where he's best, but he was really, really good at tackle too. So, I don't know. I'm intrigued by that. And he, the 5th-year option decision's coming up for him this year. That's due in May. I would think they would. Is that a
slam dunk?
I would think so. Just because when he plays, he's very good. I mean, there's the injury risk and all that stuff, but I think they'll, especially because they're not going to exercise Zach Wilson, obviously. That'll be another team's decision, I guess.
Correct. Right. Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, so he's going to be. kind of going into a contract situation too. So I don't know. I'm intrigued by what they do there. I don't really have if I'm predicting, I'd say left or right guard. But it also wouldn't shock me if there are some really good. I like the guard class in free agency better than the tackle class. There's some really intriguing veteran guys. If they decide they want to go and get a Kevin Zeitler or a Kevin Dotson or whatever, and move AVT to right tackle or whatever, like I think that makes sense too.
Okay, the first free agency move for the Jets will be what?
First free agency move, offensive lineman. I don't know who, but they'll spend some money on an O lineman.
Okay, God bless America. Aaron Rodgers, God bless, baby. Okay, Zach Attack, appreciate your brother. Love catching up. This feels like no time's passing at all. I love it, baby. And man, we're looking forward to all your great work for the Athletic.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it.
There he is, Zack Rosenblatt. Follow him on Twitter.